Welcome to the Livable Law Method, and today is going to be so short, and I'm really nervous I'm not going to get it in, but my promise is I'm going to change your life in 30 minutes. That's the promise. So what is Livable Law? Livable Law is an agile-based, people-centered, process-oriented legal project management technique that I made up. I just created it because I was overwhelmed, overworked, underpaid, and I thought there has to be a better way for us to be doing this. And so I started looking into legal project management, and then I looked at agile techniques, and then I thought, what if we had a practical guide on how to implement this in the practice of law? And that's how the Livable Law Method came to be. The driving thing to know is that the law is toxic because it mixes two different concepts. It mixes managing a matter with managing the process of managing that matter. And those are two different things. You are very well aware that if somebody has been practicing long enough, they become a manager. There's no additional training. There's no different training. They're not given different tools. It's just you're managing a matter, and now you're managing more matters with more people. But the problem is that that puts together two very different roles. The managing the matter is the what, the strategy. What are we going to do? What are we going to argue? How are we going to argue it, right? That's the strategy. Managing the process is the how. Who is going to do it? When? Who are we giving this work to? Do they have enough hours in the day, in the week, in the month to get this work done in a way that doesn't crush them? So, matter management, the what, serves the client. But process management, the how, protects the team. And what I want to give you today are 4 tools in less than 30 minutes that will change your life because they will give you practical ways to manage the how. And if you are just on your own as a solo, that's fine. These are still interesting and important practices to engage in or to know about or to understand. And if you have a firm, regardless of its size, I am so glad you're here, and I really hope that this will change your life the way it changed mine. So I created the Livable Law Method, and it has 3 pillars: the management of tasks, the management of time, the management of things. There's a much longer course. It's about 4.5 hours that takes you through this. I do trainings, but that's not the point of today. Today, it is quick, it is fast, and I truly hope that it's going to change everything. Why? I created the Livable Law because of burnout. Because I burnt out twice, because it is horrifically endemic in our profession, and because it overwhelmingly affects women, especially mothers. And I'm a mother, and it drives me insane that we have created this profession that just drives us out of it. 86% of female lawyers experience burnout, and it's actually higher for caregivers at 82%. It's higher among Black lawyers, about Hispanic lawyers. It's higher among non-heterosexual lawyers, and it's higher among lawyers with a disability. I always say legal project management is a DEI issue. So you are here, and I'm going to get started. The first tool I'm going to teach you about today is the task matrix. Now, for these purposes of today, the task matrix exists in a very humble Excel spreadsheet. But you can have the task matrix in whatever task management system you have. The goal, though, is that it needs to have the characteristics or the columns, the fields, however you want to call them, that this task matrix has. And that will help you control your workflow. Legal project management world, I did not make this. This existed long before I showed up. There's a thing called Racy-Lacy. I used Racy, some people use Lacy, whatever you want to use is fine. But basically the point is that you find somebody who is responsible for actually doing the work. You're somebody who is accountable, which means that the buck stops with them. Somebody that needs to be consulted, you want to identify that person. If there are none, that's great. But if there's somebody that should be consulted, you should include them. And then somebody that needs to be kept informed of whatever task is happening. And sometimes that exists, and sometimes there's nobody to keep informed. So here's what a task matrix looks like. You will see here that there is a matter. Okay. The matter needs to be named in a way that is consistent across your entire team. Everybody has to agree that this is how we name matters, so nobody does their own thing. You're going to then describe the task. The task needs to be intelligible. So draft motion to compel or draft motion would be horrible. Okay, draft motion to compel discovery response is great. You want anybody who is looking at this to understand what is going on. So if you're a supervising attorney, you can figure out what people are working on. And if you're a team member, you can also figure out what everybody else is doing. You want to make sure that you identify your racy individual. So R in this case is the person who is responsible, is the person who's actually doing the work. A is the person who's accountable. So why is there a difference? The person responsible would be the associate, the paralegal, whoever's actually putting pen to paper, which doesn't exist, but you know what I mean. Accountable is either the supervising partner, the supervising associate, the supervising paralegal, whoever it is that is going to ultimately sign off on the deliverable for that job. And then you have conferral, which can be OC or the client. And then you have informed. So sometimes you need to keep opposing counsel informed. So for example, if you're issuing a subpoena, you include that in there because that way it doesn't fall through the cracks that a notice should have gone out to opposing counsel about this subpoena. Or in some cases, you maybe have a relationship partner, somebody who's in charge of that relationship with the client, and you want to make sure that they're informed of something that's big, such as, for example, reviewing a scheduling order. Then this column, internal deadline, is probably the most important one. And I do a whole lecture on this, but for today, let's do it like this. Your internal deadline is real. Your internal deadline has to be respected. It is a real deadline. And your internal deadline should be at least 3, if not 5 business days before your external deadline. Why? We're done with last minute crushes. We are done with last minute averted disasters. We are done with late night filings at 11:58 p.m. because you need to get this in. We're done. All of your projects need to have a deadline that is 3 to 5 days removed, business days, from the external deadline. And I promise you that the moment I implemented this, it completely changed the tenor of everything for my teams. Because all of a sudden, there was breathing room. And it made everything so much more manageable and so much easier. And then I have an area here for notes in case you want to add something about we're waiting on something, we're looking for something, whatever it is, or we're standing by, or maybe we're not doing this anymore, whatever it is, this might be a good way to communicate within your team. So what are the rules for the task matrix? Someone is always accountable. Someone is always responsible. There is always an internal deadline. There is always an external deadline. Internal deadlines are real. There are no passive tasks. What does that mean? There are no tasks such as waiting for answer or, well, that's the big one, right? Waiting for answer. No, we're not doing that. Or waiting for order. We're not doing that. You are always going to have active tasks. So if you're waiting for an order, the active task would be in, 30 days, check with clerk for order, right? Or another one is report to client about whether we received order. Whatever it is, you want something that actually has an action and not just waiting. Every active matter has to have at least one task on the task matrix. So no cases will just fall off and there will be no moment where nothing happens. And if you are at the point where you've just checked off the last task and there are no other tasks on the matter, then you know what you do? You add in ad hoc matter meeting to figure out next steps. And you set the meeting so everybody can figure out what are we doing next. And then the task matrix has to be updated in real time. What does that mean? That means that your tasks need to be updated as you are completing them, and that assignments can only happen through the task matrix. And if this is a task management system you have, that's fine. But we are done sending tasks to each other through text message, Slack, Google Chat, Hangouts, email, whatever it is. We're done. If a task is assigned, it is assigned through the task matrix so everybody can see who is having to do what, and we have a better management of our schedule and our bandwidth. The second thing I want to talk to you about is the backlog. The backlog is a play on the task matrix. So where do I put the backlog? I put it here. It's a second sheet. And what it is tasks that I simply cannot get to or the team cannot get to. You have to recognize that your team's bandwidth is finite, and so is the work week. And so what I do is that I have a backlog for things that we want to do, but we don't have the timing or the time or the personnel to do it. And so, for example, it can be admin, reorganizing a file cabinet. It can be related to your particular matter, research expert witnesses, find jury consultants. It might be too early in the case, but you still want to keep track of the fact, hey, partner so-and-so said they wanted us to do this, so let's put it in the backlog so nobody forgets, and also so we know what's coming down at us. And it's also a great way to figure out if you have a personnel shortage. Because if you end up with 150 tasks in the backlog and the reason is lack of personnel, right here, personnel, then you know you're short-staffed. And the beautiful thing is that you can actually say, look, we are short-staffed because, look, we don't have enough personnel, but it also gives you a job description because you can figure out, okay, I need a person who's able to do these tasks. And whatever they may be, you may be looking at a more senior attorney, a more junior attorney, a paralegal, a senior paralegal, but it gives you a great way to figure out that you are missing personnel and what type of personnel you are missing. Next, the Scrum. The Scrum was a life-changing, truly life-changing tool, and I implemented it religiously, and it changed everything about the way I practiced. And I have since then implemented it to the best of my ability wherever I go. So a Scrum is a daily meeting. I know you're telling me every day, but I'm going to tell you why it makes sense. It's a daily meeting. There's 9 people in it maximum. If you have more than 9 people in a team or in your office or whatever, then you will have to hold multiple meetings. So in the sense that every group of 9 will have their own Scrum. They can all be at the same time. And then you will have one person from each of those come and report in a Scrum of Scrums, but that's beyond the scope of this video. It lasts 15 minutes, not 16, not 17, not 20, 15 minutes to the second. It's encouraged for you to do this standing up, the point being that it's only going to last 15 minutes and it's supposed to be very dynamic. Each person gets 90 seconds at most. And that really gets enforced. Each person gets 90 seconds. Now, you're not there with a stopwatch, but if somebody's been talking for 2 minutes, you cut them off, say, hey, we got to move on. Okay? And it's at the same time every day. So let's say 9 a.m. every single day you have a Scrum. You can do this remotely. It was very effective when I had a completely remote team because it forced everybody to come together, but it was very short, it was very effective, and people left feeling that they had actually gone to a meeting that could not have been an email. There are 3 roles within the Scrum. There's a Scrum Master, a Matter Owner, and the team itself. The Scrum Master is who? The protector of the team. They are the master of the how. The Matter Owner is the one who is the service of the client, and they are the master of the what. And then you have your team that is usually self-organizing. There's a hierarchy. People know what they're going to do. There's certain tasks that are assigned to some people and not others based on their particular functions and titles. The Scrum Master does not have to be a person who is hired to be a Scrum Master. It can be either a senior associate or senior paralegal or just a law firm administrator. It just has to be somebody that's going to keep the trains running on time. Each person reports on 4 items. They're going to report what they've done since the last meeting, what they're going to do before the next meeting, any stucks that they have, and they're going to share any asks. So done is short and concise. I drafted half of this motion. I made this phone call. I had this meeting. I went to lunch with this partner and I did 2 hours of legal research on such and such issue. Great. I know what you did yesterday. To do before the next meeting is not a 25-item laundry list of everything on the to-do list. It is literally a prioritization of what will happen in the next 24 hours. And this is so effective because it lets people be realistic and vulnerable about what they're going to do, and it also creates accountability. If somebody has 150 things on their to-do list and they can't figure out what they're doing in the next 24, guess what? They're overwhelmed. And they need someone to help them prioritize, to tell them, look, in the next 24, I think you can do these 6. That's it. Everything else gets moved on. We will either push it to the next day or it goes on the backlog. Stucks are super important. You don't want people sitting around because they're waiting on something. A stuck is, I can't find this document. I can't get to this person. I can't figure out how to make this argument. The client won't respond to me. Those are stucks. And people have about 30 to 45 seconds to help unstick them or offer a solution or make themselves available. If they're not able to unstick them in 30 to 45 seconds, then you move on. You say, okay, that's going to have to be handled in a separate meeting or in post-Scrum. But that gives you a quick way to identify what can be handled immediately and what needs to be handled separately. And then there are asks. This is a prime time to make assignments. I need this motion drafted. I need those responses done. I need this person contacted. I need a meeting set with that person. That's where you do the asks. And that's actually a really great opportunity for someone, the Scrum Master, to be looking at the task matrix or the task management list and say, hey, all this stuff that you just asked, that sounds great. You make note that you have to do it, but one of you needs to make sure it ends up in our task matrix so we all know what we're working on. If you do this every day, you will have clarity, and most importantly, you will have a very effective way to troubleshoot. If there's some issues that need to be addressed, you can tell people, hey, whoever had a post-Scrum issue, hang out. You do another 15 just to try to handle some of that stuff. And if you really can't handle it in those post-Scrum 15, then it needs a meeting. But it's a fantastic way not to waste time and not to hold meetings that are unnecessary, while also identifying when a meeting is in fact necessary. Number 4 is another meeting, but it's only once a week, and it's called the Matrix Review. The Matrix Review happens weekly, same time every week, same day, same time every week. It is 90 minutes long, so it's much longer. I used to do it on Friday afternoon because that way everybody knew that by about 2:30 they were done with their day, and we were going to chill and spend the next 90 minutes going over the tasks. It is not a matter meeting. You don't want to get bogged down on a particular matter. What you do is that you have the list of matters for the firm, and you go through them you go through all of the tasks on your task list, and you make sure that there's nobody who's overloaded, that you don't have deadlines piling up on each other. You make sure you check in with people about what they need, if there's anything in particular that they're nervous about. And then very importantly, you make sure that every single active case has a matter and that there's no passive tasks. So everybody is actively working on something. This is a great time also to identify if there's going to be crunches in the next week or so, and also if you need to request any deadline extensions, or if people need matter meetings, because this is another opportunity to be like, well, you've been working on this, you've been working on that, but somehow we're not resolving whatever issue. Let's set a matter meeting. Every matter should take, you will do the math, but maybe 4 to 5 minutes each, or maybe 5 to 7, 8 minutes, depending how many matters you have. If you have a lot of matters, you will tell me, Juji, how the hell am I supposed to look at 120 matters in 90 minutes? That's a very fair point. What you would do is that you would divvy those up in maybe groups of 30, 35, and then you would divvy them up in lots A, B, C, and D. And so then week 1, you look at lot A, week 2, you look at lot B, week 3, you look at lot C, so on and so forth. And so you're rotating the tasks pertaining to that matter through your weekly matrix reviews, so that at least once a month, all of the tasks for one matter will be looked at. And that's how you would break up if you have a particularly big caseload. But remember, you're still meeting every single day, so tasks are not falling, off to the wayside, and everybody's being accountable in some way about what they have on their plate, what they have done, and what they're going to do in the future. And that's it. Those are the 4 tasks that I would suggest you start implementing today. They really changed the way I practice law. They made everything better, honestly. And importantly, they actually improved the lives of the people I was working with, which was really important. And if you want to learn more, there are more videos. And if you subscribe, I will let you know as soon as the Livable Law Method, the full course, is available. It will be published soon. It's just in post, as they say. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'd love to hear from you.